Okay, now let us connect some dots, right? As it pertains to Louis XIV, which is Louis the 14, and we're going to show the filth that he lives in is a connection to these fallen ones, right? Because when you are associated with them, when you are worshiping them, to show worship to them, you have to take part in gross sexual debauchery, or you've got to live in filth. You've got to be dirty. You've got to be nasty. Your environment, your body has to be kept in a very filthy, dirty, nasty fashion. That shows worship, and it shows that you are entertaining these ancient ones. And I told you guys that sin carries a smell, and some people can smell it in the spiritual, right? Because not everyone shows a physical worship to the fallen ones. So despite the fact that they hide their filth in whatever form, whether it is sexual debauchery or other things that they are indulging in, some of us can smell it on them. But when it comes down to Louis XIV, he was physically living in filth and mess and muck. He was a dirty, filthy beast. But guess what? He wasn't the only one, right? He wasn't the only one across Europe that was living like a dirty, nasty beast. And it shows a connection to these ancient gods, right? Now, the symbol of power, Versailles, became a symbol of Louis XIV, absolute monarchy and grandeur of the French court. He viewed himself as God representative on earth, right? So let us remember that this creature, this filthy beast, believe is a representation of the Most High. Clearly, he is in connection with a God, but is not the God. Now, let us get into this. The Palace of Versailles evolved from a hunting lodge to a grand palace and the center of power at the center of French royal power. Initially, it was a modest hunting pavilion built by Louis XIII in the 17th century. His son Louis XIV transformed it into a lavish palace, making it, listen to this, the seat of the French court and government. In 1682. The palace served as a primary residence for French kings until the French Revolution, after which it became a museum. Bear that part in mind, right? And understand what's going on. Now, this place was an absolutely disgusting, foul, unsanitary, nasty haven. Excrement was often left lying around in the palace, creating an ideal breeding ground for germs and vermin. Perfumes were heavily used to mask odors, which became so pervasive that they clung to clothes and even the wig. There was a ventilation problem, poor ventilation. The palace had poor ventilation, further contributed to the unpleasant odors and unsanitary condition, right? And this palace housed thousands of people at a time, right? A lot of people was there at court. This is the seat of French power, right? Bear that in mind. So if they're not taking part in gross sexual debauchery, they have to be living like this. Palace Versailles is a temple for the fallen angels. So you get a 16th century view as to how things is going to work out when the Antichrist come on into our reality. So it's either going to be sexual debauchery or people will have to live like this. Right? That's why they're telling you that you shouldn't have a lot of showers and you should not wash your meat and all of that, is to get this nastiness that these fallen ones dwell in. They says there was a lack of toilet and sanitary facilities. The palace had very few toilets, and in some areas had no toilets at all, and people relied on servants bringing sinks when needed. Toilets did exist, were often overcrowded and unsanitary, with sewage sometimes seeping into apartments. They have a waste disposal problem. There was no proper plumbing or waste disposal system, and human waste was often emptied out windows or into cesspools. My God. No, this place was absolutely gross. And it's not just the inside that smell, the outside absolutely smell. It was stink, it was nasty, it was dirty, right? Because it was a temple to the fallen ones, right? Anywhere there is chaos, anywhere there is um, dirt, disgusting filth, that is a breeding ground for demonic entities. That is why poverty is so important, because putting people in poverty keeps them under demonic oppression. Because when you're in poverty, your living environment for some people is not good. They are on dirty mattress, their place is unkept, there is garbage all around. So it is very good to have poverty in society, because demons can get to manifest, demons can get to feed, right? Because that is another way how demonic entities manifest, through filth and grime and chaos and misery, right? Now, an important part of this place that really seals the deal is the halls of mirrors, right? And I can tell you from experience that mirrors is definitely portals, right? I've used them before indirectly, where I've seen entities looking back at me, and they did not expect that I could see them through the mirror. A prominent feature of the palace, showcasing 357 mirrors and reflecting the opulence of the times. Now, they would want you to believe that these mirrors are there for pure decoration. These mirrors are not decoration, right? These mirrors are what these entities would use to go in and out, right? Because Palace Versailles is a seat of power. This filthy abomination of a temple, of a palace, is the seat of power for France. For France's Sun King, right? He calls himself the Sun King. So that is a seat of power. So this all of mirror, this is where these entities would go in and out. And let us not forget that Versailles is where a lot of treaties were signed. And in the halls of mirror, that is where they start war and peace, signing of treaties, right? So pay attention and understand what is going on. I will be looking at other monarchs as well and connecting the dots with the filth around them, showing you that they were indeed connected to the fallen angels. They are, when it comes down to chaos and filth and dirt and disgusting and being nasty, that is a sign of demonic oppression. That is a sign that demonic entities is around that environment, and you need to vacate, right? So the Halls of Mirror is very interesting. It just shows that these entities were definitely coming in and out, right? Because that disgusting place was a seat of power. So Ibrahim Traore, hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly, he got a mighty job on his hand, right? And somehow I feel that the Sahel nation will play a very important role in the exodus that I see that's about to happen. Somehow I just feel that Ibrahim Traore is basically getting the Sahel nations, those lands, ready for when we have to evacuate from this side of the world. So whether you like it or not, a lot of us will have to evacuate to Africa. Oh my. This will be interesting to see how it plays out, right? So understand we wrestle not with flesh and blood, and these European monarchs, a lot of them were under demonic influence, a lot of blood covenant, a lot of DNA in the mix. They did not get their power from hard work, right? Colonialism is a signature of these fallen ones, and they got a lot of help, right? And you've got to give these fallen angels something in return, right? Because filth is what you have to use to show gratitude, to show worship. So you're either into sexual debauchery, or you've got to be into disgusting environment. We need to pray and say, glory be to the Most High.